Yep, we're going live now.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our, is this our pre-Christmas?
This is our Christmas.
This is our Christmas broadcast. There will be no singing. However, we do have the fireplace with the poinsettia. We have the Christmas trees that aren't lit up because somebody didn't plug them in, but that'll be amended soon. And this is our Ask Rob Anything tonight. So I'll introduce everybody as a few more people get on. So you want to start firing the questions, Frick? I'm ready.
Sure. First question comes from Dean Clark in Edmonton, Alberta.
Dean in Edmonton. I get cold just saying that.
He says, when retracting my bench plane blade, the cap lever rides up with blade leaving the cap lever cut out very close to disassemble notch. Should I worry about it?
Okay, now I have to think about what he just said. Try that again, please.
Okay, when retracting my bench plane blade,
Yeah.
the cap lever rides up with blade leaving the cap lever cut out very close.
The cap iron or the lever cap? What did he call it?
He calls it a cap lever.
Let's,
I
yeah.
don't know if that's a cap iron.
Well, if you're talking about the lever cap, if this piece is riding up when you retract it, that's a little more problematic. What is that?
Sounds like your phone.
I turned my phone off. It's not my phone. Jake, are we going to have that kit? Okay, so there's a couple of problems. This is inherent in most planes. Let's address the first one. So this is the chip breaker cap iron, and it's held to the blade. And it has to be really tight because some of the adjustments of the blade are applied to the cap iron, and they bring the blade with it. Well, I never have liked the way the screw fits, so we're in the process of having a conversion kit made for your plane. It'll include a much better screw right there. It will also include, where are they, Jake? Are they here somewhere? Yeah, they were. You had a whole handful of them. So what we're going with, you tell me when you're on so that I can get in close. We're switching this from a slotted screw to a, what number is it? What number is it? You'll get better traction. So that'll solve one problem. The next problem is this piece. This screw, the underside of it is just, it allows, oftentimes on planes, it'll allow the lever cap to move. So that problem will be solved as well. What you can do with yours, if it's a problem, is you look at mine. Mine has a little countersink. As soon as you're ready, it's going to make it easier. Frick, am I in focus?
Kinda, yeah.
We cut a little chamfer right there. And all you have to do that is put a countersink bit in your drill press, put it on slow speed, and then come down on here. Now, it's going to want to it's going to want to move this way, so you got to keep pushing against it. But if you cut a little chamfer right there, that'll hug on that screw. And it'll stay put. So you don't have to worry about that moving. Okay? Hopefully that'll solve the problem you just asked me about. Next question, Frick.
Next question comes from George W. in Maryland.
George W.
That's all I got.
Do
you have a position on whether or not using a portable planer to flatten cutting boards assembled with cutoff with the end grain pointing up is a good idea or not?
If that's your only means. A portable planer, or did he mean a hand plane? What did he say?
It said portable planer.
So I'm thinking you're talking about a thickness planer, power plane.
Oh, a portable.
Well, that's just the small benchtop ones. And I mean, he could be talking about a benchtop one, which is often called portable because you can take it to the job site. He might be talking about a power plane, I don't think he's talking about a hand plane. Either way, if you're sending something through with end grain, the back side is going to tear. So you're going to have to go in and cut a pretty healthy chamfer on that trailing edge so that it'll minimize that. And when you cut your chamfer, wish I had an example of what I'm trying to show you. Have we got a stack of end grain anywhere? All right, here. Envision, here's your miniaturized shooting board or cutting board, and this is the end grain, and you're cutting through like that. So when you come in and cut a chamfer, what you have to do to protect it is you can't cut a chamfer like this. You got to cut a chamfer like this. So your chamfer has to be closer to this angle, not this angle. So you want it to be just like that. And obviously it's got to be deeper. So that's why I said cut a healthy one so that, because you really can't judge, you may miscalculate how much your thickness plane is going to remove. And if you do, it's going to blow this side out. Other than that, yes, fine. As long as your blades are sharp. Next, Frick.
Yeah, next one comes from Greg Shepard in Oregon.
Hey, Greg. I lived in Oregon.
Is there any advantage to a dedicated shooting board plane like the Lee Nielsen number 51 over a regular bench plane like the 5.5? Thank you.
I have an antique Stanley. I'm not going to say no, but the problem is if you once you get into the whole hand plane thing, like how many times a day do I lift that shooting board up here and have it on the bench? It's extremely frequent. Can't imagine doing anything where you're not using that multiple times. So if I just don't have room on my bench for another plane. So the fact that my 5.5 works exceptionally well in there is a huge bonus, because then I'm only moving the shooting board, not having to store the plane somewhere as well. If you got a big shop and you had a separate little bench over there with it set up, fine. Is there actually an advantage to it? Well, when you see the handle that we're coming out with soon, got lots of stuff in the works. It's going to be an exciting 2023. The shooting board, in fact, I'm going to ask Ken. Ken, tell them how comfortable that shooting board handle is.
They can't hear
Ken, they can't hear you? You got a mic for him?
Well,
I stand over here close enough, you can?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you use the shooting board for mostly?
End grain,
On what?
squaring up. Oh, we use it on torrefied maple, we use it on Osage orange.
What were you doing the other day where you said you had a whole ton of it to do and your hand gets raw?
That was a torrefied maple.
Torrefied maple. So how much of a difference did that handle make in using it?
The difference is between after a half hour of your hand being numb and paining to you could do it all day. That's
Nice
the
and
difference.
comfortable. So everybody keeps asking, how come there's holes in your plane? Well, that's because Jake keeps changing his mind where it's going to fit. I'll have no plane left by the time it's done, but it's going to work. It's going to work really well. So that's the biggest problem right now. If you're using a regular bench plane in your shooting board, where do you put your hand? You can't hold it back here. You have to have control right in this area. Now, when I say that, what I'm referring to is this. This is the widest part of your plane, so you want the pressure here. This is where your blade is. You don't want to be holding back here because you've got to keep that plane tight to the side of your shooting board. So if my blade's right there, it's easy to keep it right where I want it, and that's that. That will I don't want to say this in a cocky way, but if we wanted one of those, we would just, I'd say Jake buy one, he'd buy 3. So we'd have them. And no use, no value. Nothing special about it over a bench plane, I don't think. So if you have lots of money and you want to buy one, go ahead, but it's a space thing for me. I could think of other ways to spend shop money, but that's up to you.
That's big money too.
Yeah, it is, $500. Go ahead, Frick.
Next one comes from Bruce Butters in Pointe Claire, Quebec.
Hey, Bruce. Comment ça va?
He says, I'm not clear on the concept of using the Shon shim for dovetails. Is this only for half blinds?
Oh, no, any dovetail. Any dovetail. I got a pain in the neck. I can't complain about it because I did it playing hockey, and you can't complain about getting hurt doing something you enjoy when I deal with people who are blown up and busted up from serving their country, so I don't need any sympathy. I just am limited in what I can do tonight. So, shoot, Jake, don't I have dovetail somewhere ready to cut? I already did it. No, let me show you. There's the Shon shim. Ken, would you do me a favor? Scrounge me a couple pieces. Oh, you know the dovetail wood back there. And I'll answer another question while you're doing that, please. Go ahead on the next one, Frick.
Okay.
Are we running short?
No, Mark Fincher in Marietta, Georgia. I'm about to build I'm about to build your workbench, and will likely have to make it pull double duty as an outfeed for the table saw. Do you have any advice or strong feelings on this?
No, that's a great idea. I did it for a long time. Where did we do it? Over there? Or in the old shop? I used to do that. It's a really good idea. The only thing I would suggest is just make it so it's just a little bit lower. You can always prop it up a little bit, but it's kind of hard to lower it. So make it a little bit lower in your table saw so when you're pushing stuff off, it doesn't bump into it. So slightly. But yeah, really good use of your space. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, so here, let's review this because it's. And normally I would hand plane these to finish, but I haven't got what I need to push a hand plane right now. So I'm just going to trim these ends. So what we're talking about is how do you use the Shon shim? So you got one board sitting flush with your plane. Set that back. Oh shoot! Hold on a second. I've got to go in and put the tails in. If you're wondering what's going on here, I'm going to tell you about it a little bit later tonight. This is a really fun project in preparation for summer advanced classes. Okay, I need a marking gauge over here. Ken, what's your son's name that turned us on to this magical tape? Tim. Big shout out to Tim Anthony for telling his father about this refinisher. What is it? Automotive refinish masking tape. It has replaced my skew block plane. And I actually like it better now because it doesn't mean I have to change anything else. So I'll give you the whole message here. So the first thing I'm going to do after putting that tape on, and what I'm doing is I'm creating somebody has named it a tape wall. So I'll go in and I'll trim that off. And then I've got my marking gauge set to the thickness of the opposite piece. And I would come in here and I would cut through the tape, score all the way around. And you can just peel that off. By the way, I would normally have put more tape down here so that I had a little heavier wall. Now, just before we do that, we've got to come in here and cut the tails. So, now, I usually put the tape on after I do that so that I don't have to run into this problem getting rid of that sawing fuzz. Now, we need, and this is the part of cutting a dovetail that requires the level of precision that we talk about. The second piece has to fit the template. You can be inaccurate in terms of the slope on each tail on this piece, and it's not a big deal. But this one has to be right on. So somewhere in here I have a dovetail marking knife. And ever since we started doing these drawers, Jake, so that I don't sit here and have to go through every one of them. Do you have any idea where it is? No. Ken, do you have any idea where my dovetail marking knife is? Yeah, I wouldn't say it was the last drawer I looked in, but it happened to be the last drawer there was to look in. Because the reason you say it's the last place you look, because why would you continue to look once you found it? So here's what we do. This saw, when it's new, has a kerf that if you were to measure it, it's 24 thousandths of an inch. Why? Well, the blade is 20 thousandths of an inch. That would be 5 sheets of writing paper, because a piece of writing paper is 4 thou. And then the teeth are set, meaning each one is bent either to the left or to the right, and they're bent 2 thou on either side. Now, I say when it's new. As it dulls and you resharpen it, it'll have a little less set. You have that variability with your Shon shim. So if it's 24 thou, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Shon shim. I'm going to use the 24 thou side. I'm going to keep it flush like that. So this part is hanging over, because of the little recess, this part is hanging over 24 thousandths of an inch. So when I set this piece on here, referencing it up against that little tape wall so it holds it in position, and I slide it over like that, there's a little lip right here now that's 24 thousandths of an inch, or the thickness of a saw blade. And if I move this piece, let me draw this out so it's really, this one's easier to see. When I move the tailboard to my right, I'm going to go in here and identify the pieces. These are the tails. When I move the tailboard to the right, I go to the left side of each tail. This is our dovetail marking knife. All this stuff's in stock and for sale. This dovetail marking knife has a little sawtooth blade that is the same as the blade in the dovetail saw. So when I put it down in that kerf, it doesn't wander side to side. When I drag it through, it leaves a precise mark in the second piece of wood, known as the pin board. You can do it 3 or 4 times. So if I did it on the left side of this one, I'm going to go and do it on the left side of this one. And then I'll go and do it on the left side of this one. So that has effectively marked one side. Now we've got to do the other side. Well, in order to do the other side, I've got to take my Shon shim, and I've got to turn it this way. So now the top one is 24 thou less. So when I hold it right there and move this over, I'm now overhanging by 24 thou. Notice I always reference off the same side. If there's any discrepancy in the thickness of these two pieces, that's going to screw it up on you. So you always reference off the same side. So now, when I move my tailboard to my left, I'm going to go to the right side of the actual tail. So there's the tail, there's the right side. So I'll reach down in here and do the same thing, holding this firmly, tape wall up against the inside of the pin board so that it will not move. Just drag that through a few times and then finish with this one. Now, the big problem in teaching dovetails to people, or how to cut dovetails, has always been when it comes to cutting the second piece. We used to use a knife. We would take an X-Acto knife like this, and you'd go in there after removing the waste, and you would trace around. Problem is, you're trying to saw next to a little wee thin line like that, which is almost impossible to see. See what we have now? All you have to do is set your saw in the kerf. It falls into it. You can't miss. Set it there, drop it in, and finish your cut. And you do the other ones. There's no thinking. It's automatic. Remove your waste, put your joint together, and live happily ever after. So that's what your Shon shim is for. You can use it on the half blind. You can use it on the through dovetail. And in all, big shout out to Shon McDermott. Shon was a combat wounded vet that came to our second class, which would have been in the spring of 2017. And Shon came up with this idea, a piece of wood that he made to do that. Took us a while, but we eventually said, we can turn that into a product. So we actually have two different sizes, one for the small dovetail saw, which is a thinner blade. And we made it adjustable, meaning you've got 23 thou, 24, 25, and 26. So you want to adjust the fit of your dovetails, you can do that. So it's very precisely made. Obviously, it has to be when you're talking the thousandths of an inch difference on each side. And we pay Shon a royalty on that for each one we sell. Smart guy, that Shon McDermott. And by the way, if you're on tonight and you're a combat wounded vet that has been to our class, we love to say hello to you, give you a shout out. So please, Ken at Ken, your name, what class you were in, and we'll give you a howdy do. Next, Frick. I don't mind answering long questions.
Next one comes from, where'd it go? Paul in Montreal, Paul Francoeur.
Hey, Paul. Oh, I know Paul.
Since you prefer the plain finish to sanding, what do you do to the very sharp edges of a piece?
Good question, Paul. I'm guilty of. There was a time when I left everything with a very sharp edge, and I liked it because it was so crisp. But people don't like it. It's very susceptible to damage. It's also not very friendly to the hand. So what I do, I'll just break it with the hand plane, with the block plane. And when I say break it, sometimes I just do a chamfer, a 45-degree chamfer. Other times, with the blade set in, very light cut, I'll just 1 pass, 2 pass, 3 pass, 4 pass. So you create a radius like you would on a computer, where it's not a true radius, right? It's multiple little facets, but they're so small that you can't see. And then other times you just take a piece of coarse sandpaper and just hit the corners really well. But I almost always use a hand plane. Next, Frick.
All right, next one comes from Jerry DeTwiller in Odessa.
Hey, Jerry.
Odessa, Missouri. I want to make small boxes. What small planes sizes would I need?
You want to make small boxes? What size plane? 5.5. I wouldn't change my recommendation. I would not change my recommendation on what plane. If you're an adult male that's 140, 50 pounds or heavier, by all means, 5.5. Don't think sizing the plane. Huh?
Or the line of block. Like if they were using the mini shooting board.
Oh, yeah, but because you're going to want to surface the stock. Like I'm going to make some planes, I'm going to make some boxes out of that. So I want the 5.5 to clean that up. Got a good video coming up too, by the way, on these flat miter shooting board for cutting the miter this direction. You'll enjoy it. I want to talk to them about how's our numbers, Frick? How are our numbers?
We have 404 right now.
Okay, when we hit 500, tell me, please. You know, this is our, we do this, the reason why we do this
For expansion?
isn't just because we love you. By the way, big Merry Christmas to everyone tonight. We're switching cameras.
Yep.
This is how we raise the funds, and more so, this is how we let you participate. We run what's called the Purple Heart Project. If anybody's on there, I wish I knew if I was talking to new people.
Yeah, there's a few.
There's a few. So this is how we raise funds to run our Purple Heart Project. And in a nutshell, the Purple Heart Project was named in 2017, started in 2016, is where we discovered that hand tool woodworking is very therapeutic. I've known that for a long time. I didn't know how much it would help combat wounded veterans suffering the ill effect of combat, whether it's a physical wound or a mental wound. So 6 times a year, 1 a month, April through October, we bring in 7 combat wounded vets from all over the world. We've had them from Denmark, we've had them from Ireland, from Australia, Canada, and the bulk of them are from the US. We fly them in, we take care of their hotel, their meals, feed them very well. And every vet, after a 6-day course, and we run on the course from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9:30, 10:30 at night, every vet goes home with $4,000 worth of premium tools. The same thing, same stuff that you see behind me. That's what they take home. And thanks to the Bench Brigade, Jack Lane and Chris Chahusky and Jim Rossetti up in Moncton, New Brunswick, we deliver a workbench to them for them to have in their home so that they can continue to do this work. And it's an awesome program. Costs a lot of money. I think we figured out now, our figures that we have posted are old. It's somewhere close to $7,000 for each vet that we bring in. And if you want to be a part of that and help these men and women, by all means, you can donate. We're now a registered 501c3. Did I say that right this time? Sound right. Which means it's your donation now is tax deductible in the U.S. We're in the process of setting one up in Canada. It's going to take, it'll be sometime this next year before it's done. It's a long process, a lot of red tape. So if you want to help out tonight, by all means, you can go on our website, RobCosman.com, go into the Purple Heart Project, and you'll find the instructions on how to help financially.
And the donation link is posted at the top of the chat.
And the donation link is posted at the top of the chat.
It's pinned there.
Now, we extend this a little further. We want to reward you for your generosity, but we also want to help some of these vets that are trying to get businesses off the ground. And I discovered this about a year ago, that a lot of these guys really can't come back and take up a normal job. You'd have to know a little bit about them and what they've been through to understand that. But you don't just turn that on, turn it off, turn it on. So a lot of these guys suffer things like hypervigilance and nightmares and night terrors and all kinds of stuff. It's really terrible. So their only option is to sit at home and stew or do something on their own. So I've got a handful that I'm working with, and I try to mentor them. So we meet 3 times a week for an hour via Zoom, and in doing that, and helping them out along. So what I do is we give away a prize for every $1,000 we raise tonight. We'll draw. You do not have to donate in order to get in on the draw. But it would be good. We'll give away one of these prizes. The prizes value about $300. You want to grab Kim's purse? It's right out there. So I'll highlight this one first. So this is Jeff O'Connor. Jeff was retired EOD. This is made out of walnut. This is a badger bum hair shave brush, which is one of my favorite items. and special shave soap. He turns these. It's got the little, Jeff's little seal on the bottom. And his wife, who also deserves a Purple Heart for living with Jeff, her name is Kim, and she is taking up the cause to help the wives of these combat wounded vets. The divorce rate is unbelievably high among these guys, returning wounded vets. So those women that are able to maintain really have been through multiple wars on their own. And Kim's trying to help them. So Kim makes these really, really exceptionally well-made handbags. Now she has an Instagram channel. You can go on and actually see these being made. So this is a Patriot bag. Kim, would you like to come up and model this? No. It's a woman's bag. Snippets and Stitches is the name of her business. Now, I'm not a connoisseur of fine handbags. I'm like Frick. But I know craftsmanship when I see it. And there's Kim's smiling face. Is that... Don't do that again. There's Kim's smiling face. That's my neck going on me. And you just look at it. You look at the stitching. You look at the way it's made, and you appreciate what went into it. So that's Kim and Jeff. We have one more right now. And that is Kevin Burris. And Kevin is a retired EOD, blown up so many times. I think nobody has counted them all. And that just wreaks havoc on your body. The last one really almost killed him. Had to learn to walk and eat and talk and the whole bit again. Severe neurological damage and physical damage. But Kevin makes these, we call it carved in stone. And they're carved in either granite or slate. They come on stands. So this is our PHP mission statement, and I've got one out there that's my own statement, and then I've got one right here, which is, I don't have a place to stand it, but this is the Canadian flag with a very well-known Canadian warship. If Paul was on, he would tell us the name of it, because I can never remember it. So if you're thinking of something really nice, he just recently did one for a dad, bought one for his son, a retired Marine, and it had his all the stuff that was pertinent to him, and it was quite an emotional gift. So we give away one of these prizes for every $1,000 we donate. I'll leave it out here, because I don't want to have to lift it up again. Okay. And we have our Purple Heart t-shirts, so if you want to help us spread the word, there's 3 different t-shirts. You see them up there. There's the dark blue, which says wood is good on the back. There's the green that says wood for good, and there's a turquoise one that says wood doing good. Okay, Frick, Jake, why don't you have the camera on? Okay, I'm done. Well, come on back.
What's the question?
I don't know. Frick, what's the question?
The question is, Bob, it's from Bob Vogel. I don't think I got that right.
I know Bob.
He's in Highland, Illinois.
Yep.
He
Hi,
says,
Bob.
is it bad to have too much clamping pressure on glue-ups?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The obvious, can you see me? Am I over far enough?
Yep.
The obvious is that you're going to damage the wood surface that you're clamping against. You damage your clamps. I've got some pipe clamps back in my younger day when I wasn't too smart that are actually bent, so much pressure applied. If you have to apply that much pressure, there's something wrong with your joinery. So my favorite clamps, now that I've gotten a little bit better at joinery, my favorite clamps are these F clamps made by Bessie, and they're considered medium duty, Jake, or light duty?
Medium.
Are you sure?
Yeah. They're not light.
I would say they're light duty. You can't apply
Light
it.
duty are the little click clamps.
Yeah, okay. Well, then in that case, they're medium duty. But I like them. I think they're great, and that's all the pressure you need. So re-examine your joinery if you're having to apply that much pressure to pull things together. And you got to remember too that if you're gluing, don't use too much glue. Don't use not enough. That's a dandy piece of advice. But when I was making this bench, give you an example. So these the center section is made out of several pieces of maple with double splines. So that means as they're glued, the boards are glued together face to face. There's 2 splines. Helps with the alignment. So when you put them all together, they almost come out perfect. All you really need to do is scrape off the glue, and it's left nice and flush. But the splines were continuous end to end. And you put the glue on there, and then and what happens is I use too much glue, and there's no place for the glue to go. So I couldn't get the joint. I had so many clamps on there, trying to get the joint to close, because the first spline is about 1/2 inch below the surface, and 1/2 inch below the surface on the bottom. So you got all that glue trapped in there, and it wouldn't let the 2 pieces come together. So, yeah. Now, if I was going to do that differently, I would make the splines intermittent so that there was some room for the glue to run. So, yeah, you can use too much pressure. Next, Frick.
Whoops, I switched cameras there. Next question comes from the chat, from Alan Morgan.
Hey, Alan.
He says, "Hi, I got a question for Rob. I'm a new woodworker here. So how do you tell edge grain from face grain? Example, I have a 4-inch cube and I know end grain, but how do I tell the edge from the face? Thank you and Merry Christmas."
The way I would look at it would be, I would take the widest surface, and that's the face, and that's the edge. And I mean, you could look at grain orientation, but that depending on how the board's cut. So this board is cut so that there's the rings. So the rings are curvature like that. So out of the tree, it was standing like this, and there's the center of the tree, so there's your ring. So that's how that board came out. But I've got a piece of wood here. I don't. Thought I did. I had a piece of wood. Another piece of wood may be cut. So if this was your stump, and this is your center of your tree, you cut a board out like that, and now your rings are going directly perpendicular to the run of the board. So instead of the board, there's the center of the tree, instead of the board coming this way, the board actually came out that way. I would still call this the face grain and that the edge grain. So there really isn't a difference in terms of gluing property. If you look up, get the Bruce Hoadley book, Understanding Wood, and it'll talk to you about, one of the things that you need to know is you need to understand how much wood is going to expand and contract with the relative humidity change in your home from the different seasons. Now, we live in pretty tightly controlled climatic conditions in our homes today, so it's not going to be a big, huge movement. But a board that came out this way would move a little bit differently than a board that was come out of the tree that way. But I still would call face would be the wide surface, edge would be the narrow surface. Frick?
All right, next one comes from Tim McManus in Virginia.
Hey, Tim.
He says, "What type of tray are you using for your sharpening station?"
What type? Oh, that's Jake bought that. It's Shapton makes it. It's called a sharpening pond, and I didn't buy it. Jake bought it, and it does contain the mess, but
It's like $400.
yeah, it's crazy price. 400.
I think it's 400.
Yeah, and it comes all the way from Japan, so it's heavy, and shipping is a nightmare, is a big chunk of the expense. So we decided not to carry them just because it was so expensive for what you were actually getting and using it for. Ken, any vets on? Yeah.
Frick, is my mic on?
Your mic is, yeah.
Who are we saying hello to?
The second.
Can we not turn that camera a little bit? I don't even think I'm in the shot.
You are.
That's all of them,
If you stand at the corner where your dovetail is, you'll be in the center. Yeah.
Casper.
So,
We can't see the flag.
can you not click on?
You want me to turn the camera on to see the flag?
Yeah. It's Casper. Friendly ghost.
Switchfoot.
Okay.
So, if you see this flag of Denmark, and Casper is a combat wounded vet that came from Denmark, so we proudly have that flag up there to remind us of him. Such a good guy and a very good craftsman. Casper, brother, Merry Christmas. Who else, Jake?
Jeffrey O'Connor.
Haven't we talked enough about him?
Jeffy.
Yep.
Sorry,
Jeffy.
Jeffy. Kevin Burris.
And with sidekick Starsky. Jeff O'Connor down in Virginia Beach, soon to move into his new home. He and Kimmy. Big shout out to Jeff. Talk to him every day. Kevin Burris. Way up in snow-laden New York. Poor Kev. When it snows at 3 inches here, it snows 60 inches there. Kev catches all of that lake effect snow. Kev is Army, EOD, attached to Special Forces. Really good guy. We call him the Wizard. He looks like a wizard. Comes up with great ideas, and Kev does the laser engraving on stone. Pretty cool process.
Jesse Marler in San Antonio.
Hello, Jesse, brother Jesse, down in San Antone. Jesse was here. Jesse was in what class?
I guess he's in
Second to last one? October?
2020.
Yeah. No, Jesse not. Jesse Millar. He was in the last class.
He was October. No, sorry, he was October. He was the last
Class
one.
number 20. So Jesse's claim to fame is Jesse's bench. Oh, has he received it yet? Or Jesse's bench that he's receiving is being built by Jack Lane and assisted by the Admiral, which would be David Robinson of San Antonio Spurs fame. It'll be a good bench. Next.
John Beck in Tennessee.
John Beck, Santa Claus, your time of year. John is a Vietnam vet that was here early part of the year, April, May. And John is, John, I haven't heard from you about the vet that's coming, so you need to get a hold of me. Merry Christmas to you.
And then Al and Sid.
Al's on? Employees. So Al McNeil, I called him Al, what did I used to call him? Al McGinnis. Al McGinnis, hockey NHL player, a super hard shot from Nova Scotia. But it's actually Al McNeil. And Al is the man behind that big 105 shell. Al, retired tank commander, Canadian Army, got blown up in his last tour. Al came to us, how long's it been, Ken? 2 years? Wow. Al's a great guy. Al's my buddy. Al works here. He rebuilds. I'm impressed. I would not have tackled changing out the segmented head in that old planer, but Al does that without a hitch.
And loves it.
Yeah, he's good at it. He's great. Al works here 2 days a week, sometimes 3. And Sid was in our class with Sid in. Sid was in the September class with David Robinson and his brother Charles. Sid is local. He's from Nova Scotia. He's got a little bit of a twang. Sid lives just 50 miles north of us. And Sid works 1 day a week. Good man. Merry Christmas to you, boys. I'll see you before then, Christmas anyway. Go ahead, Frick. Anybody else, Jake?
Mm-mm.
All right, Ryan from Ridley Park, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Ryan.
Have you ever used the wooden hinge in a vertical application for a cabinet door?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Where is that cabinet? It's on Ken's bench. Yeah, it's great because you've got lots of wear surface. So yes, I have used it. Now, when I did it on the cabinet door, I left it in the round, meaning I cut, instead of cutting the groove, the radius, so that you're cutting out enough to come up and around, I only routed out half of it. So I left the wooden hinge. You saw the half round on the outside, kind of like this. Show you this as an example. So imagine this being your door. So the hinge looked like this instead of flushing it off. So if you look, half of it stays on there. So yeah, I could even say this. I could hold this like this, and it's now a door instead of a lid.
I got a couple more.
Who?
Wally from Niagara Falls.
Wally up in Ontario. Wally's one of the few Canadian vets we had that was in our class this summer. Wally's very active on the what is that chat that they communicate with? What's it called?
Slack time.
Slack. Good to see him. And Wally just got his bench too. I can't remember who built it. I'd like to give him a shout out. But Merry Christmas, Wally.
Jim Eakin.
Jim. Jim is a medic.
Goldeneye.
Oh, Jim, yes. I got to remember that. So Jim was injured in Iraq, I think 2002, early part, and he's got the coolest injury I've ever seen. He was injured because the blast was delayed, roadside bomb. Instead of hitting the front, it hit the rear where he was, and one of the results was a lot of nerve damage to his face. So on one eyelid, it doesn't close. It would open, but it wouldn't close. And he pointed out, showed me what they did. They inserted a little wee gold bar. I'm telling this, people, make you mark you in society. People be after your gold. Just between the 2 layers of skin and the eyelid, there's a little rectangular piece of gold that allows gravity to close his eyelid. It is the neatest solution. Not that I wanted to see him get hurt, but wow, what a ingenious bit of medicine. Merry Christmas, Jim.
Phil Gustafson.
Philip Gustafson. Oh, I haven't heard from Phil in a while. So Phil Gustafson was in our first class, and if you look up here, you'll see what I can't lift my arm up over my head, but quite possibly the best dovetail. This was the very first time I'd ever taught these vets. I had no idea. I didn't think they were going to be able to do very well. So when I teach the dovetails, and after I demonstrate it and I put the guys to work, it's hours before anybody is ready to progress beyond. What they have to do first is they have to cut. We do a 3-tail joint, which has 6 cuts in it. All 6 cuts have to be perpendicular across the end within our tolerance. And it takes them a good couple of hours to even get close to getting that. They'll get 4 or 5, eventually 6. So I'm teaching the class, and within 15 minutes or less, Philip says, okay, Rob, I'm done. And I'm thinking to myself, whatever. So I go down and look, and oh my goodness, he actually did that. He got it right. And I'm thinking, how am I going to keep him entertained? I said, okay, and showed him what to do. Well, then he managed to screw it up. He cut the wrong part off. So he had to redo it again. But so that's his second attempt. First one completed. I wish you could get the camera right up there close and see it, because it was as good as it gets. Philip Gustafson, brother, also the very first person that I know of that signed up to donate $100 a month to the Purple Heart Project on a reoccurring basis. So, Philip Gustafson, brother, I salute you, and Merry Christmas. We'll get you up here, hopefully soon. Anybody else, Jake?
Yeah, Michael Delvoy.
Oh, Michael. Mike is in Florida?
Nope, you make that mistake every time.
I do. Where's Mike?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Or Wisconsin. Which one was it?
Wisconsin?
No, I think he's Minnesota.
Just say something about Mike, because now I got to get...
Vietnam. White beard. Retired from the post office.
Glenn Cross from Grimsby, Ontario building finished.
Glenn Cross, big shout out to you. Mike was the medic?
He's Vietnam.
Vietnam? Oh, Mike, I got to go back and look at your picture, brother. I know it, and as soon as I see it, I'll say, oh, yes. Mike, my apologies for messing this up, but Merry Christmas. Great to have you on. Anybody else?
No.
All right, next question, Frick.
Drago Dichev in Santa Barbara, California.
You want to say that again?
Drago Dichev.
Drago.
Does polishing the primary bevel of a mortise chisel all along its length make chopping mortises easier?
You know, that's an interesting question. Has anybody, I don't think anybody's ever posed that before. That could be the one exception to the rule, because that is essentially your cutting surface. I'll pull one out and show you what I mean. A mortise chisel cuts or is used completely different than a beveled edge chisel. So I've got two of them here. A beveled edge chisel, we only sharpen the very little bit at the end, because that's all that's making contact with the wood. We polish the back because that's the reference of the tool. But a mortise chisel, when you're chopping, it's not the, well, is it?
No, it's the bevel.
It's the back.
Oh, yeah.
As you
that's right,
chop,
'cause
it's
it
pushing
pushes.
like this. So no, that's why. So when you're chopping your mortise, the bevel is pushing the chisel forward like this. So it's actually these edges that are doing the cutting. So if you wanted to step it up a notch, you could polish the back and you could polish the sides. But polishing the bevel, because it cuts like this as you pound, not like that. Yeah, I had to think about that. So no, I wouldn't bother polishing the entire bevel. Next question.
Don Catelli in Bushland, Texas.
Hey, Don.
What would be a good starting price for me to sell a wood hinge box built with figured wood?
That's tough to answer. I mean, I'd love to do a session some night on pricing your work and get lots of feedback. I'd invite some other people on to do it. Of course, the quality of your work comes into play. If you've got gappy joints, well, that's not going to command a big price. If you've got perfect joints, well, that's reason to charge more. However, the buying public doesn't necessarily see that, even though it's right in front of them. The overall look, I mean, I never excuse craftsmanship. I think that always needs to be bang on. But the overall look is what people are going to like. They want a nice shape, and square, boxy, I don't think do so well. I like a rectangle shape. This isn't helping you. You need to figure out the material bill. Like if I was going to price, here's a really plain Jane box. So can you see me well enough? I don't have to get close.
Yeah.
So this box is made out of walnut. The walnut on the sides and the ends and the top. Plywood on the bottom. If you notice, the joints are nice and tight. There's no gaps. If you notice at the lid, there's no gaps. The lid fits precisely, and can't even tell which side it closes. When the lid closes, there's no gap. The hinge is hidden well when you open it. So that box, for the most part, has been executed extremely well. Now, I haven't finished. I haven't broken the edges off yet. But it's just I don't mean to insult walnut, but there's nothing glamorous about that. It's a nice looking box. It's well made. Blah blah. Pardon? It smells good. There's no finish on it yet. Now here's a walnut box that has a nice piece of figured walnut on the lid, and that would command more, even though it's the same size approximately, same craftsmanship. But when you start adding some features to it that make it a little more attractive, you can charge a little bit more. If I had some others here, I would grab them and show them to you, but they're over in the other room. So, as far as pricing goes, figure out, there's what I wanted to show them, by the way. Figure out how much time you have in it. Figure out your shop time, and don't scrimp. You have to pay yourself. You have to pay your shop is worth X number of dollars per hour. You need to have a profit. You need to pay yourself a wage, and you need to have a profit. If you can't do it profitably, then there's no sense in doing it. Now, if you get a reputation and you can kind of move into that art category, then your prices can go up substantially and people will pay. So,
Roland Dean said he sells his wood hinge boxes starting at $500.
who does that?
Roland Dean.
Roland Dean. Well, there you go. So, I'm sorry. So Roland Dean just mentioned in the chat that his start at $500. It's going to depend on your market, and it's going to depend on, as I mentioned, your craftsmanship and the overall look of the box. I'd rather err in charging too much than not enough. You need to pay yourself. I'm notorious for not having charged enough, but it's a tough question for me to answer, not knowing what your work is or seeing it. Anyway, there's some things to consider. This, by the way, is the new screwdriver for adjusting your planes, and it's very positive, so it doesn't slip like the old slot screws do. Frick. Oh, we got new products that are coming that are just going to blow your socks off. I'm not allowed to say anything, but there's some stuff that we're excited about. So we got to the point where we could now go back and start saying, you know what? Nobody changed this over a long period of time. There's some things that could be done a little bit differently. You know, the example was our adjustar, and there's an improvement coming there. That makes it so much easier to adjust your plane. My goodness. You don't even think about it. You just do it. You used to have to stop and take both hands to try to move that stupid little knob. I'm talking about the knob that advances or retracts your blade. And there's some other things about other tools that are very common in a hand tool workshop that you're going to see stuff coming. We just released, finally, our scraper sets. Come in a really nice pouch made for us by a local company. And the pouch has room for one on either side. We sell a 20 thou, and we sell one that's 35 thou. Chris Davenport up in Fredericton grinds them for us. So if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it or not, but that edge is really close to being ready. We sell them already ground. You got to do a little bit, but not nearly as much as you would normally have to do. And then we have tools for helping you prepare it. They're made out of torrefied maple so that water doesn't bother them. And we use wood because as they run over the stone, you don't want it to wear your stone. So when you're dealing with your scraper, I'll just give you a quick little demo, even though we just did this recently. To do your edge and to keep it square, you set it on your stone like that as you move it, and that holds it square. And then you use this to utilize the Charlesworth ruler trick in polishing a strip along the edge. Instead of having to do the whole thing, you have that sitting up on your little steel rule. When you put pressure on that, it just gives you a little polished strip right out there. Works extremely well. Unfortunately, we sold out, and we're waiting for magnets, and it'll be the 1st of January before they're back in. But as soon as they are, you'll be able to get them. We've got the scrapers, lots of scrapers, but it's the tools that we're waiting on. And other stuff, I'm just going to have to hold you in suspense for a little bit longer.
How did you get under that?
I have no idea. We drift.
Rick, say that.
Yeah, I was. Frick?
All right. Dave Windsor in Tatamagouche, Nova Scotia.
Tatamagouche. So a lot of the Native American names where we live, we have Restigouche, we have Washidamoic, we have Pamdenek, we have Quispamsis.
You mean Chris Pam Sam?
Who says that? Super Dave. So you drive through New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, BEI, you'd be tongue-tied trying to pronounce some of the names. So what's he got to say? What's his question?
Considering you use many traditional hand tools and techniques, do you ever use hide glue?
No. Now, I've experimented with different glues when I get into a situation where I needed them. But I pretty much exclusively use Tight Bond 3, which is waterproof, not for use below the water line, but good for exterior. And it's just as good as any other white or yellow glue, but it adds the added feature of being waterproof, so why not? We use epoxy a little bit. We use a boat glue, which is a plastic resin. You mix it with water. Occasionally, we use a slow set for the laminations that we do. But no, I haven't used hide glue. I'm hooked on traditional methods, not necessarily traditional materials. Put it that way. Next, Rick.
Dan in Barcelona. He says Spain, yes.
Spain, yeah. Dan?
Any tips on keeping the lapping plate level? I find I make a hump down my stones using Trend and Shapton.
Ooh. Well, I always advise people that when you're lapping your stone, to keep it in close contact, meaning don't go way off, way over. Try not to go more than an inch out beyond, and that probably won't happen. But the other thing, too, is people have a tendency to push down too hard. Relax. Let the stone do the work. Next, Frick.
Dave McKibben in Minnesota.
How are our numbers, by the way, Frick?
437.
We didn't hit 500?
No.
By the way, Michael is from Wisconsin.
Michael's from Wisconsin. Mike.
Yep. Dave McKibben in Minnesota. Is there anything you don't like about your chop saw dust hood? Is there any limiting factors?
So over here, no, I like it. I think it works great. The chop saw would have this place would be an absolute mess if it wasn't for that. I think it's a great addition to anybody's shop. I don't know how well it works if you were just having to hook a vacuum up to it. We have our central dust collecting system hooked up to it, so there's a lot of pull. Okay, I want to talk a second. So we released our 2023 schedule for the 6 PHP classes. That's training the hand, and they sold in 15 days. So all the civilian classes were filled up and gone. We're still looking for. We've yet to select vets. So if you are combat wounded, here's the stipulation: you have to have been wounded in a combat zone, whether it's a physical wound or something like PTSD or traumatic brain injury. You don't have to have a Purple Heart. That's just the name of the program. Or a sacrifice medal in Canada, and I'm not sure what the medals are in the awards are in other countries. You have to either be active duty or have been honorably discharged. That's a DD-214 for the Americans. And you have to fill out the application. And I'll tell you, when you fill out the application, you've got to write it like you're writing it to your therapist, because it's all we have to go on. The only people that read it are Super Dave, who was retired military himself, combat wounded, 17 years. Retired Colonel Luther Sheely, who is a lifer, retired. Jake, my son, and myself, we're the ones that do the selection process, so your information is remaining confidential. So apply, please. Let us help you. And if you know anybody, please spread the word. If you're a combat wounded vet that has been to our program, you have what's called a blue chip. We trust you know who should be here, and on your recommendation, it's almost a shoo-in for the person that gets recommended by you. So I decided to do 3 advanced classes this next year. We're going to do one in June, one in July, and one in August. These are going to be a little different. They're going to be a week-long class. You had to have had my training the hand in order to come to this class. But I want to show you. So the hard part about this is coming up with a project that varying skill levels can do. It has to be sexy because people want. I got to be able to want. The best project we've ever had was rather boring, but from a skill level, it was really good because 50% of the people were able to finish it. So Luther and I talked about this, and so what I'm going to show you is the prototype. The prototype is just made out of plywood. The real McCoy, which I will build, will be made out of whatever hardwood or softwood, whatever it is that you want. And the idea behind this is, I would think that the least talented individual in the class will be able to get most of the case done, and the real fast guys will be able to get the case done and the drawers built, and they may even be able to get the whole thing finished. But you have to have a project that entertains all those skill levels. So here it is. So this is going to be a portable tool cabinet. I'll just show you a little bit of it. So when the doors close, and there'll be some kind of a closure. So if you look over here on the side, just get the whole full meal deal, Jake. A little bit of shakerism going on. That's supposed to be flush, so that'll have to be, it's sitting up on a little bit of a foot. So you're gonna have dovetails up here, dovetails on the doors. You're gonna have through wedge tenons on the parts that meet in the middle. And when you open it up like this, I think we'll have magnets back there too that will hold the wings in place. So the nice thing about it is, as compact as it is, when it's opened up fully, you've got quite a bit of space. You're going to have 3 drawers down below. Of course, they'll all be dovetailed. They won't be these embarrassing rabbits. I've got this one almost complete. So on this side, you've got your chisels. I really like the way they turn it. Got my 2 squares. Got my combination square over here for doing miter work. You got your mallet. My room for my 3 marking gauges. My Kerfex 10 in here. Now the only other thing is my 6-inch steel rule is going to go on this side. My 12-inch steel rule is going to go on that side. And then I think that pretty much tops that side out. This section is going to be planes and saws. So standard item would be my 5.5, my 3/4 shoulder plane, my block plane, my panel and my rip. Some good news coming about a Cosman panel and rip saw in the near future. And then I'm going to have my coping saw, my fret saw, and I'm just working on a means of holding my tenon, my dovetail, and my crosscut. And they'll sit in here like this. This got to be trimmed. And when you want them, it'll open back like that so that you can take it out like a holster and then put it back in. This has got to be modified, and it just takes some work. Got to design all that and get it to work just the way I want. I think that's going to be really cool. So, if you've been to our class and you think you want to take your skills to the next level, this is going to be an opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. That will be fun. I'll get to build 3 of them because I get to build one with everybody else. Next, Frick.
This one comes from Lester Smith in Marietta, Georgia.
Georgia, yeah. Hey, Lester.
If you are building a chest of drawers with lots of drawers, would it be advisable to clamp the tailboards from each drawer together in order to cut both tailboards at the same time?
Yeah, you can. I do that often. However, did I do it on these, Jake?
I think so.
There's a couple of advantages.
You're doing it right now.
Huh?
You're doing it right now.
Yeah. There's a couple of advantages. When you're doing little drawers like this, isn't that cute? If you're cutting a dovetail into something that thin, you're trying to make a perfectly square cut across the end, and you've got a very small line to follow for reference. So what I'm doing with these is I'm leaving the 2 sides in full thickness. So I go in, I fit this to the opening, and then I cut the dovetails in the front here and on the back there. I got nice wide reference, and then I go over and I split this down the middle and I get my 2 side pieces. So that's the pro. The con to doing it is when you're cutting 2 at a time, the back one sometimes suffer a little bit. You might cut too low just because you can't see it. The one in front always gets all the attention. So depending on where I'm going to put it. If I was building a box a dovetailed box, I would do them individually, because then I want everyone to be perfect because they're going to be seen. Utilitarian work, maybe it can be. You can trade a little bit of that perfect precision for the speed you get in doing two at a time. Next, Frick.
Chad in Wisconsin.
Hey, Chad.
What are some good projects to get kids started in woodworking, specifically under 10 years old?
Jake's making a good one right now. Where is it, Jake?
Over here.
Huh?
Over here.
So all kids, when they're bad, should make their own butt paddlers. Get thrown in jail for that today. Now this is Jake's making this for his. Is he your cousin?
Nephew.
Nephew, right. And this is called a pickle paddle?
Pickleball.
Pickleball paddle. I know if they're into skateboarding, you can make skateboards. You got to pick something that they enjoy. That's the trick. I got Mitch in here. Mitch, is Mitch here? No. He was. Well, I just needed him for a second. So Mitch came to me, and the first time he's actually shown any interest in here, and he wants to build wood hinge boxes for his friend's mother and a couple of other people, my brother. I'll just show you real quick. I think it's sitting right here. Still hear me, Frick?
Yep.
Is Mitch here, Mickey? He left. Darcy, is he driving? So I'm helping him. Mitch is 16, so he's making this. This is his first one. We haven't got back to work on it since probably last Thursday. So the lid is on. Lid's bird's eye. Box is made out of walnut, and did a good job. It's got to be flushed off and cleaned up and then finished. So find something that they're interested in. You might have to make some suggestions, obviously, but that's the key to hold their interest. What were you interested in, Jake? Jake just liked to eat all my maple butter. Next, Rick?
Next one's from Jake in Washington State.
Same Jake?
Different one.
Different Jake.
Any methods for fine-tuning flat miters if you can't use a shooting board?
Any method for fine-tuning flat miters if you can't use a shooting board? Yeah. Well, I mean, that just increases the
Level of difficulty.
Level of difficulty. So if that was one half of my flat miter, and the miter wasn't fitting or it was either too much past 45 degrees or 44 degrees, I would probably come in here and put a stripe down there, and then I would take my plane. I don't have the one. I don't use it anyway. My neck's too sore. I would plane off whatever amount. If I need to increase it, I'd start my plane here and plane that off, and then eventually take a full pass. But then you got to make sure you're keeping it square at the same time. So you're going to have to come in there. Hello, Moosey. You have to come in there and keep checking it. That's why it's going to be a little bit of work, but it's doable. So this is little Moose. This is Jake's wife Megan, and little Moose. He just had his birthday. He's now one. He wants his dad. Next, Frick.
A couple people ask about the wood hinge jig for making the dowels.
What did they want to know?
How you make them?
They want a close up of how to get it set up.
Oh, the jig for making the
The
dowels. Oh, yes. I'll show you that. Do you have a question you're just about to read, Frick? I'm remembering where I put it.
Yeah, Chris Wilson in Columbus, Ohio. My workbench is 54 by 64 hard maple. It's from a high school classroom. How do I flatten it by hand?
54 by what?
64.
Holy Toledo. Get somebody to do it for you. That's a big job. Oh, wow, that's a big job.
What did you say 54 by
54
60?
Yeah, well, they used to just make great big square
Right. So
and
you
have
could
a
have
vise
4
in every
people.
corner. Depending how bad it's out, I mean, that's just a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But not that it isn't doable, but you're going to have to go in. First thing you're going to want to do is go in bye. You're going to have to identify. Bye. You're going to have to go and identify the worst part, the problem. So if you found a hump in the middle, what?
He wants to do this by hand?
Well, he's asking. So go in and find the biggest error. So if you can envision trying to find, you want it to be, ultimately you want it to be flat. So at some point there's going to be a really low spot, or somebody's going to be a high spot. And you got to bring the height, unfortunately you got to bring the whole thing down to the lowest spot. So find that and just go to work on it. And I find that when you're having to remove a lot of material, you're better off cutting across the grain than you are going with the grain. It'll come off easier. Doesn't leave as nice a finish, but it'll come off easier. A lot easier to control. You're not going to get the tear out. You're not going to have to deal with grain direction. And then when you get it really close, then you're going to go in and plane with the grain to try to perfect the surface. But my biggest bit of advice would be cut across the grain for the bulk of it, and make sure you're working problem areas first and bring it down to one level. And use a long-bodied plane and have 3 or 4 extra blades that you keep sharp so you can switch it out. Because as soon as the blade gets dull, then it's just sheer torture. So this is my jig for making wood hinge dowel. Didn't we just do this? Our last? So...
What is that?
What is this, wood? I don't remember. Lignin, maybe. So you drill a 1/4-inch hole for a 1/4-inch dowel, and then you have to cut in and open up the top of the dowel. Now before I do that, the top of the hole, before I do that, after I drill the hole, then I flare it in the opening. And then you go in and you cut into it so that you expose the top. Now I have a blade on here, and this is the hard part. And I can't even tell you other than the fact that I just experiment, and then when I get it, I leave it.
Can you draw this on the whiteboard?
No.
Okay.
No. So your contact point wants to be right here at the top of the circle. So when your dowel is spinning this way, you want it to be cutting, somewhere right around here at the top of the circle, which means you've got to be able to adjust the height. If it comes out too loose, well, then you got to put some shims underneath to make the dowel essentially a little larger diameter. And I've never had a problem where I have had a problem where it was too tight. Anyway, you just need to know that you have to move this up and down until you get the right diameter. You have to move it. I end up playing with it, swinging it this way or that way, and trying to get this. It's just a whole lot of things that go into it. And if I could write about it, I would, but I've never.
You suggest using an oily wood.
Yeah, you want an oily wood.
Like what?
Well, actually, it's a good question because you do it out of some oily woods, and it'll actually color your blonde wood when you're pushing through it. What would be oily? What's a good one that we have?
Either of the lignums.
Yeah. Some of the exotic woods, if you try to do it out of maple, it's going to burn. It's just going to cook on you. And you got to feed, and then when I put the dowel through, you start off with something like this, so it's square. And if it's going to be 1/4-inch dowel, it has to be a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. Maybe a 64th, somewhere between a 32nd and a 64th bigger. And then you go over to the table saw. And on your with your table saw, with your blade at 45, or you can do it with a plane, you're going to run it through and get rid of the bulk of the material. So you're going to turn it into a hexagon, like a stop sign. And then you need to sharpen one end like a pencil. put it in your drill, and then you want to make sure when you're doing it that you're square to the face of the piece, square this way, and you've got to be square in this direction. So you can't run it through like that, nor can you run it through like that. So when I do it, I clamp it on my bench. I clamp it on my bench so that I can keep it square because, oh shoot. See, if I clamp it on the end of my bench, then I can use my bench to eyeball it to keep it square in this direction. And I can also, I usually get somebody to give me a, I get it so that it's square in this direction, and I can run my hand holding the drill right along the bench so I can maintain that. And a lot of luck. And don't be afraid to, or don't expect to get it perfect the first time. Ideally, you want them to come out. If you're using our wood hinge drill jig, you're going to want them to come out just 1 or 2 thou under. You need a pair of these. If you want this to work right, you need a pair of calipers. So you want that dowel to come out. See, that would almost be considered perfect. So that's 2.49.
No. 0.
0.249. Just under a quarter. And that will allow it to not jam in the wood hinge drill jig and fit perfectly in the groove cut by the router bit. And it takes a little bit of messing around in order to get that just right. Don't forget, help us out. It's Christmas. Make a generous donation so we can bring 42 combat wounded vets in next year. And we also have to keep Angie working because Ken's telling me that she's not been working as hard as she could be. This is Angie. This is Ken's cousin. Angie, because of a illness, has been confined to her room for a few years. But she's getting better. She's going to come here and work. We got her locker ready for her. And she and her sister Lynn, who's her full-time caregiver, do all the packaging of our Purple Heart t-shirts. So when you buy one of these t-shirts, they're folded very nice, much nicer than I could. And at the top, there's going to be a seal. There'll be a picture of Angie and I in there, and her A, she's in charge of quality control. And you'll be keeping her employed. So, there you go. Hi, Ange. Merry Christmas to Angie and Lynn. Hope you have a wonderful one.
Should we mention where Luther just came from?
Yes. So Luther, Sheely, this is Luther.
One of your ugly sons.
One of what?
One of your ugly sons.
With his twin.
He's the one with the dust. This is Luther and Super Dave. They look so much alike, I can never tell them apart. Brothers from a different mother. Luther is down in Greenville, South Carolina. His sister Alice, that you heard us talking about, Alice passed away a couple of weeks ago. She had been sick for a while, and our condolences to the Sheely family. Luther was down there. He made a very nice urn for her, and how long is he there?
He's on his way back.
Oh, he's on his way back now.
Yeah.
Oh. So, Luthi, love you, brother. Merry Christmas. Super Dave on?
No.
He's so slack. We bring him up, we take him fishing, we teach him how to play hockey, and he
He
can't
caught
even
a big fish, too.
He can't even watch the show.
Wally said he researched oily woods and found Purple Heart, Babinga, Sonata mahogany, teak.
Cocobolo.
Yeah, the only problem you got to be careful of is some of them will color your blonde woods when you're passing through. What wood did we use? Cocobolo?
No, it's a red one. Bloodwood.
Bloodwood. Oh yeah, bloodwood, and it just turned it imparted the color, the reddish color into the wood. So you got to be you got to be a little bit picky.
Somebody else said they use paste wax and it works for them.
Yeah, well, the only problem with using paste wax is you don't want wax to contaminate the dowel that's being glued into the. I suppose you could
And-
sand it off. Actually, you could wipe it. You could take it off with lacquer thinner, too. Next, Frick.
You ran an out, Frick?
Herbie Grief in New England,
Hey, Herbie.
or Northeast England, sorry. When cutting various
New
wood-
England or Northeast England?
Well, it just says NE England.
Or is it
so-
northeast New England?
No, I don't know. When cutting various wood species, both rip and crosscut on a table saw sled to make small boxes. Is there a one table saw blade that works for every situation?
You know, they make a combination blade. We don't actually use them. We have two separate blades. We have a crosscut and a rip, and I'll tell you why. If you're ripping a lot of wood, the rip blade is so much more efficient. If you're dealing with plywoods or melamine or
Even softwood.
even softwoods, a nice 80 tooth crosscut blade does a beautiful job. And so that reason we use both. But I mean, you could buy a combination blade. You'd probably be happy with it if you're not cutting a whole lot of wood. Yeah, and I should actually call and tell them I'll work for them. Freud blades are great. They're relatively inexpensive. In fact, they would be considered inexpensive. And I could probably say we've had at least 50, if not 60 blades. Probably have 100 now. Numerous brands, and I've never found anything that was, oh wow, this is so much better than a Freud. Freud blades are really good. Ken says,
His wife requested in the chat that you give him
oh yeah, is it his birthday or Christmas or
a special occasion. Didn't say what.
Almeria?
Jason Almeria.
Jason Almeria. Where's he from?
Doesn't say.
Well, I wish I knew something about him. Well, Jason, big shout out to you. I'm not sure, maybe it just she loves you. So she's giving you a big shout out. I'll wish you a Merry Christmas, a prosperous New Year. Send me a text, tell me a little bit about yourself so I can I know who we're talking to. Who else we got, Frick?
Walter wants to know what are some good oily woods.
What?
Oh, he did?
Come on, Frick.
Well, he asked it again.
Get off Instagram.
Yeah, Frick, are you on Instagram?
I don't even have my phone in my hands.
Well, that's
Look at
strange.
this guy.
Any more vets to say hello to? Have we got any donations tonight?
We can't see that anymore. It's on a different site now.
So how are we going to know what we're giving
Ooh.
away?
Luther's on.
Oh, is he?
He's in the plane.
He's on a plane.
He's playing his Wi-Fi.
Oh, wow. Luthi, I don't know how many thousand feet you are, brother, but let us know. Next question, Frick. Come on, I'm all warmed up.
Yeah.
Are you scraping the barrel?
Yep.
Really?
Okay, Dan, and this is another one from Barcelona. I'm having trouble joining with my number 6. It bottoms out when taking the hump out using Rob's method, but the hump remains. I have to resort to a 4.5. The plane is as flat as I can measure with feelers.
Huh. And it's not taking out the bump. So I assume he's talking about the edge of a board, or is he talking about a panel, meaning the face? Does he say?
No.
Kind of the same thing. Well, my first solution is always check your sharpening, because it's the complexity of doing fine work with anything less than a perfectly sharpened blade multiplies unnecessarily. So check your sharpening. Make sure that your blade doesn't have a hollow in the middle. A lot of times that happens. You end up with shaving on either side. And then make sure that your blade is parallel to the sole. A lot of people can have a hard time seeing that, sighting down there. But check all those. And I can't imagine why you would have a hard time. So what I will do is if I'm trying to straighten the edge of this, and get rid of a hump, I will go in and turn my plane like that. Now your reference point is this long instead of this long. See, if I'm doing it like that, I've got that much reference. But I hold it on an angle like this, I cut my reference down just to the amount of the blade, amount of the sole that's actually working on it. And you can go in then and cut out the center section. And I would keep going back. Am I hitting things? What's that blade look like? Sticking way out on one side.
Jason's from Toronto.
Oh, is he?
Sorry, I said that wrong. Toronto.
Toronto. Hey, Jason. Leafs fan, probably. We have to apologize for that. So here's how I would do this. I want to get this edge to be straight. Draw a line down through the middle. Nice thing about these dry erase, they don't sink in deep. Take the center section out. And then just keep going. Not all the way back and not all the way forward. Check. If you have to, you can angle your plane a little bit to increase what you can take out of the middle. And then eventually you're going to take a full length pass. And then check it with the side of your plane. It doesn't pivot. I don't see any light. So it should be straight. Next, Rick.
Jerry Stubb in Brighton, Tennessee.
Gary.
Yep.
It is Danny's friend. Down in
Oh,
Clarksville.
Gary.
Gary
Burnett.
Burnett. Is Gary on?
I haven't seen him.
Shoot.
He says, I have a small workshop, 12 by 20.
This is Gary?
Yep. Jerry.
Jerry. 20 by what?
12 by 20.
12 by 20?
My
Oh,
current
that's not
workbench
bad.
is 4 by 2 with metal legs. Would this bench be too small or short to be stable after adding another top to the current one and adding a Schoberg vise?
So, your bench is 20 inches wide by 4 feet. So our bench that we make is 20 inches by 60 inches, 5 feet. And you want to add another top onto it so that you can add on a Schoberg bench top. I wouldn't think so. I mean, I don't know where your legs are. We have it so that on the Cosman workbench, one leg is just a couple of inches in from the end, and the other leg is about 15 inches in from the end. So, any idea what's the base, Ken? What's the base from the outside of the foot to the outside of the foot?
What's the length of the stretcher?
48.
Ken's been heading up our bench building, so he's supposed to have these numbers in his head. We haven't been doing it long enough. I would say that it's probably, would they be 42?
I think they're 46 actually.
46? The stretcher's 46? And then you add a couple of inches on either side. So 40, 48, 50?
We have a 13-inch overhang for the vise.
So- Yeah. I would think you'd be fine. If you're not, you're going to have to fasten it to the floor somehow. Pardon?
Depending on what kind of legs you get on it. Said they're metal.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of have to see it in order to act that. But I will say this, the Schoberg vise is the best vise of that type that you will find anywhere. It's simple, but it's well made, and the adjustability so it has no racking is great. And it takes 15 minutes to install.
Some people ask about the tool auction.
Tool auction? Oh, yes. Frick, how did you make out?
Nothing. I looked into it. It's nothing we can set up very quickly or easily.
How are we going to do this? My apologies. Mattress Doug was so generous to donate 3 pieces of equipment. A brand, and these are all new in 2020. A 20-inch Powermatic thickness planer, the top model of the saw stop, and a Grizzly 8-inch long bed jointer. Stuff's in mint condition. And we're trying to figure out, he donated it. First of all, he stepped up and bought the equipment from one of the vets I'm working with that kind of needed to sell his equipment. And then Doug turned around and said, Rob, I'm just going to give you the equipment so you can auction it off for the Purple Heart project. Well, Luther was trying to take care of that, but Luther's also been involved in moving, trying to get one house ready to sell, his sister dying, and him having to be the executor and take care of all that. So we kind of, a little bit of a time crunch, not to mention how busy we are around Christmas. But we're trying to figure out a way to do this so that everybody will have a fair crack at it. And Frick took it over, but we'll have to figure out some way. If I can't even call for offers. If you're serious about it, if you're looking for either of those pieces of equipment, you should at least register with Gina. Let her know that you're interested. You reach her at support@RobCosman.com, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can go on and see the pictures, but the stuff is like new. It's a big saw stop. Saw stop has 52 inches to the right of the blade. It's a 3 horsepower single phase. It's the exact same saw that I have right there behind you. And there's also a sled. I can't remember the name of the sled that comes with it. The Powermatic is, you look on the website, it's a nice big Powermatic 20-inch thickness plane that's got a helical head. Yeah. And the jointer looks super brand new. And it's a long bed joiner. It does not have, it's got a straight knife, but in great condition. And we're selling it to the highest bidder, and all those funds are going to the Purple Heart project. The equipment is sitting in New Hampshire, so it'll ship from there. And don't be afraid, shipping prices aren't nearly as bad as you would think. Frick?
All right, next one comes from Joseph in Ohio.
Hey, Joseph.
He says, I am right-handed and about to build a Cosman workbench. I've seen in some of your videos that you lay out dog holes on opposite sides of your workbench depending on the dominant hand of the user. But is there any reason for a right-handed user to not use a left-handed layout and plane towards the vise? This configuration would fit my limited work area better.
Well, when we designed that bench, we originally had 2 vices. We had a vise at one end to act as a tail vise. Now, the purpose of the tail vise is to squeeze your piece of work between 2 bench dogs so that you can plane this way. This is the face vise. The purpose of a face vise is to hold pieces that you're dovetailing, for lack of a different example. The problem was those vices are expensive. And at the time, we were just building benches to outfit our classroom with the vets, and I think there was a shortage of vices. We couldn't get there weren't any vices available. And we thought, well, why not just take the vise off of here? If we mount it down here anyway, you can cut dovetails because it's the same setup as it is over there, and you can use it for a tail vise. So one vise would do the work of 2. If you can afford it, buy the second vise and just mount it up here. But would I want to have my vise down on this end and plane toward the vise? Well, I can't think of any reason why.
Well, the reason that it would have been this way is so that you weren't, like, when we had the shoulder vise mounted, you would want to plane into your bench because then you're not restricted by bumping into that when you're planing this way.
Right.
So there wouldn't be
So
any
if you're
reason
just
not
using,
to.
if you have a Cosman workbench, tail vise on one end or the other, I don't think it's going to matter. Here I'm operating the tail vise with my right hand, but I could certainly do that with my left hand. So if I'd had it down here and I was tightening, the only hassle is you're tightening it up here and then you're walking down here to the end of the board. Whereas I'm tightening, all of my controls are right here, and this is where I'm planing. So that would be the only, but I could live with either one. I don't think, if you're restricted by your layout in your shop, that's not going to be an issue. Next, Frick?
Jim Whitefield in the chat says, I built your shooting board and I just love it. My question is about flattening my bench top. I don't have a large plane. Can it be done with my low angle block plane? He's in Edmonton.
Oh, you're going to flatten your bench with a low angle block plane? Whew.
Well,
I suppose, if long as you don't mind emptying a lake with a spoon.
well, that and you don't have a flat like your reference.
How about if I just get you a really good deal on a Wood River number 6? Ken, how much is a Wood River number 6, all dressed up, sharp, ready to go?
For
Canadian?
360.
360
US.
US? Yeah. Wow, I can't even imagine, and I have a little bit of experience at this. I can't imagine flattening that bench top with a block plane. It's doable. It's doable. It's just that it would be difficult because your reference surface is that long, and you're trying to keep something flat. So that would be. I probably wouldn't tackle that. Next, Vic.
Gary Badger in the chat says, Rob, did you
Hey,
use
Gary.
dovetail joinery for your small parts drawers?
Pardon?
Did you use dovetail joinery for your small parts drawers?
Gary, who are you talking to, brother? Is Jesse Rufian John tonight?
No.
Got a nice card from him and a Christmas ornament.
Yeah, he was on for a few minutes.
Was he on? Yeah. Got this from Jesse. You have to look close to see all the joinery in it. Show you my.
Sorry, Jim, on the previous question, Jim said he meant the low-angle jack plane.
Oh, the low angle jack plane? Yeah, but yeah, possible. There's the question on the joinery. So all of these drawers will be dovetailed. I at one point was probably guilty of thinking about just doing a box joint, but no, that my better senses took over. By the way, if you're interested in our online workshop, this is a great deal, by the way, because you get to interact with Jake and I in a very informal way, banging each other back and forth on ideas. This is where we build the stuff. And that's what we're working on right now, is we're just doing those drawers. And it was more complicated than it looked, because we had to get the spacing right so they were all the same. But the dividers are unlike a normal chest of drawers, where you just have strips in the sides sitting in a groove. So this one closes because the front hangs below and touches that divider. This one closes because the front sits up above and down below, touches both the upper divider and the lower divider. And this one, the front sticks up above, and it makes contact with that upper divider. I've yet to go in and finish fitting that one, and I got to go in and address it here so it's flush and then spray them. That is figured sapele that Mel sent me. So if you ever want a great source for wood, exotics, probably the best supply I've ever seen, check out Mel at Exotic Wood in Burlington, Ontario. And he ships. Next, Rick.
Tyler in California says, I'm building a shoe
Hey,
cabinet.
Tyler.
I'm building a shoe cabinet with a dovetailed bottom and through wedge mortise and tenons for the top. The mortise and tenon will be housed in a stop dado about 1/8 inch deep. How would you go about laying out your joinery so that the sides are square, not canted in or out?
Okay, now that's a loaded question, so you got to say it again. Punctuate properly so I can follow you.
Well, I guess the important part is the last part of the question. The mortise and tenon will be housed in a stop dado about 1/8 inch deep. How would you go about laying out your joinery so that the sides are square, not canted in or out?
You following? Neither am I. Sorry, I'm not following your. I'm not following what you're asking. It was a shoe. What's he building?
A shoe cabinet with dovetailed bottom and through edge mortise and tenons for the top.
Shoes, and the bottom is dovetailed, through wedge tenon on the top. I'm not sure why he thinks that it would be canted in or out. That's all. Well, here's a good example of why the online workshop. What was the online workshop cost? $25 a month. Do they get a deal if they buy a year? Yeah, so for $250 a year, you get 3, it averages out to 3 episodes, 3 45-minute episodes each week. We build numerous pieces of furniture, but you get access to all of the stuff that we've done since 2011. And I can't even tell you how many different projects are on there, from benches to chest of drawers to beds to tables to chairs, everything. And that's where so to try to answer a question like that in 10 sentences is difficult. But when you can actually go in, look back, and then watch the process and see, okay, this is what you did, this is what he does here, this is what he does there. And I talk through the whole thing because Jake and I are constantly bantering back and forth when we're building something, whether he's got an idea or he sees something that I don't see. But this is the project that we're working on right now is, I don't know if you knew this, but our first project was the bench. And then the guys wanted a cabinet, a tool cabinet, behind the bench. Well, we obviously wanted to make it out of the same material. However, this is something that is, it's got to be in tune with you because, I mean, the space is such that I know where I want everything. So we built the original out of just plywood and pine with the intent of working with it over the years, making modifications, and once we like what we had, we would then go back and redo it out of bird's eye and mahogany. So this was the first section that we settled on. It's where I keep all my shooting boards and stuff like that. So this is all done, and then if you see this pull out, this is where all my drilling apparatus is. My drills are away being repaired. And then we did this section of drawers, and I'm glad that I've got another bunch of drawers almost finished because I need the space. And then we built over here, and this is where we went in and we did everything French fit, so I know exactly where every tool is, and I eventually end up remembering what drawer it was in. This one is just a drawer with a bunch of junk. You have to have one of those. This one has all of my measuring tools, level, winding sticks, panel gauge, protractors. Now we're doing this section. So this section is where all of our planes sit, but we wanted to utilize the space in behind. So behind the bigger ones, there are little drawer, what do we call them, Jake? Shelves, thank you, where we store blades and such. Really cool. And now we're working on all these little drawers. And what's throwing me is, when I knew where everything was in the original, these are the originals. These are the new ones coming. And then our next thing will be doing this piece. So we're always building stuff. And, you know, how many people have access to training? You take up this sport, you buy some tools, you read a few books, watch a few YouTubes, but it's pretty hard because you're always going to be doing something just a little bit different. But you get connected into something like we do here. You know, I can stand here and I can show you some of the stuff that we built. It just happens to be here. So we did this. If you have a drill press, you have drills and tools all over the place. So we did this one, and it's just a 5-drawer cabinet. And then I don't think we did that one, did we, Jake? What? Yeah, we did. We did this one. It had an ugly old electrical panel in there. So I just wanted to hide it. It's new. So we just utilized some of the space. Of course, we're doing these two pieces. And then we built this cabinet. This is where all my, I used to, what? Is that not how to finish it? No. I used to spend hours in a week running around looking for my mask, looking for my gloves, looking for my goggles. Now all that stuff is right there. This cabinet is probably worth $50,000 when you, I can't reach up there and get that, but that needs to go back in there. This is where all my router bits are. This is a portable. This is where all my hand power tools are. And that's on wheels, so that can move around. Everything's dovetailed like you would expect. And then we come around here and we built this piece to for my chop saw. Even my offcut bin is all dovetailed. That comes out. And we've got really deep drawers to keep stuff in. Can't be more district. Oh yeah, walk by this. So this is my clamp rack that we built. It's matched. It too is made out of mahogany and bird's eye. And it's double-sided, so everything you see on this side has the same on that side. Wouldn't even want to guess at what this is worth. Not the cabinet, but all the clamps. And we come down here a little bit further. We have this. So I bought one of these on an auction, and we needed a base, so we never carted it around. So we went in and we made this base for it. It's got through wedge tenons on it. The sides come up to hold this in place so it wouldn't fall off. Doors, frame and panel doors, mitered frame with splines. Anything over there? Oh, and then this cabinet. This was a nightmare because all the stuff that you use around your table saw, never could find it. It was always stacked somewhere. So this is where my sled is. We just recently made a new little sled. That's been something I wish I'd have done long ago. We had to find a place to put it, so we put a little shelf right in there so it fits right there. Doesn't fall out. Keep my big sleeve in there that goes over, covers my fence. All our stuff. So we've been focusing on shop furniture for quite a while. We'll go back into some regular furniture soon. Okay, and one last question, Frick?
Jed Drew in Tillsonburg, Ontario. I have a 1950s vintage Woden No. 4 hand plane. Woden was subsequently bought up by Record. The plane works well, but the blade adjustment knob is small. What type of adjuster do I need for this plane?
Ooh, don't know. We make adjusters to fit Wood Rivers, Lubans, Lee Nielsen, and Stanley. So we did a beta test. We took 100. We sold at half price 100 Stanley adjusters and asked for the feedback. And I think how many didn't? 2 out of 100 didn't work on their Stanley. So that was pretty good. But the brand you're talking about, can't tell you. If you want to submit to support at RobCosman.com, if you can measure the thread pitch and he can't?
He can't and I can't.
Oh, no. My only suggestion is that here's my suggestion. Find somebody with a Stanley, which isn't hard. Take the Stanley one off and see if it fits yours. If it does, there's a pretty good chance then that'll fit your plane.
So I'm going to... Luther had the wrong donation link in the thing the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, he had the semicolon in the wrong spot. So I'm going to post it again. So if anybody wants to make a donation.
So there are no donations.
Well, there might be, yeah. I think it was right in the beginning and then it got changed. But anyway, I just posted the proper one.
So if you have been trying to donate and you couldn't.
Yeah, there was a few. That's what brought it to my attention.
Okay. So the proper one's in there now and you can go in and make your donation. When are we going to select the first group of soldiers, Jake? Right, but we got to buy plane tickets. So I'll just bring you a little up to speed while we're waiting for this. So a couple years ago, I bought this little shopping mall that we are situated in, and so the shop that you see all the time is right here. Behind me is our main production shop that Ken runs, and then beyond that is where all our inventory is and where Gina and Pam work shipping all the orders, and Jake and I have an office, and Carol, our bookkeeper, has an office up there. Out in front, in between the two buildings, is a retail spot that has four retail spots. So we are in the process of renovating 2 of them. The business has vacated them, and we're turning them into rooms that we will use as Airbnbs. But mostly we turned them into rooms that we will use when we bring the vets in. There's a little 3-bedroom house that we bought and renovated that's right on that side of the shop. My mother-in-law lives there in the winter, but we will use that to put up 3 vets. So we have 3 over there, and we have 2 in each one of these rooms. It's going to be a double. So all 7 of our combat wounded vets, when they come, instead of having them at a hotel where we have to, sometimes they get a bad headache or something, need to lay down, not feeling well. Now they can just walk right to it. So it's going to be a whole lot better. Nice rooms. Just going to be perfect. The civilians that come are still going to have to go to the hotel, but it's only 12 minutes away, and they give you a really good rate. Which reminds me, I got to make sure that we've got the rooms booked for them. And as time goes on, we may end up vacating those other two, and then we'll have even better capacity to keep everybody right here under the roof. If you are thinking about coming to, I can't even really be, I was going to talk to you about the class, but there's no opportunity because they're all booked. But you guys that are coming, you're going to have a blast. It's fun. Food's fantastic. The atmosphere is second to none. The learning is second to none. And the company with the vets is why people come. Big Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you out there. We appreciate your support.
Are we doing a draw at all?
Because of you that we're able to do it. Yes, we're doing a draw. You tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
So Moose isn't here tonight. He's homesick. So get better quick, Moose. So we'll do our typical giveaway 3 dead cats, and then we'll give away one of these big prizes for every $1,000. So we're giving away a total of 5 prizes tonight. If you don't know what a dead cat sweater is, it's the warmest garment you'll ever wear. It's a cozy fleece is what they actually call it. It's got the Purple Heart logo on it. If you win, you just have to contact us, support at RobCosman.com. Tell Jeannie your size, and we'll have it in the mail to you. So let's give away our 3 dead cats first, Frick. You ready?
All right. Yep. First one's going to Steve Morin in South Carolina.
Hey, Steve. Congratulations.
Next one's going to Bob Burrier in Wisconsin.
Can you guys want to come in and say Merry Christmas? Pardon?
Next one's going to Bob Burrier in Wisconsin.
Hey, Bob, Wisconsin, you will appreciate a dead cat up there.
Another one?
Did we give away 3? Is that 2?
This is that was number 2. Number 3 is going to Herbie Grief in Northeast England.
Herbie.
He made sure he was clear on that.
Yeah.
Northeast
Sorry.
New England, no.
That's actually, it's not waterproof, but I've worn mine out in the rain. It's a long time before it soaks through. It'll keep you warm. Okay, so now we're giving away 2.
Oh, I forgot to ask the question if Frick has ever done a dovetail. And my answer is no, I haven't, but I certainly could. But I choose to use my brain for other things. Yes, I work.
Yeah. Yeah, we until we come up with a rubber dovetail saw and
That was 1 year ago.
completely harmless chisels. Was it December?
Yeah, it was our Christmas episode, remember?
Really?
Or was it?
Hence the red all over the place.
Hmm.
So, so let's give away a Kevin Burris laser engraving on stone, carved in stone. And then the other one, you'll have the option. You can either choose a shave bowl and brush from Jeff O'Connor, or if you want to get for your wife, you can do Kim's bag, and she'll customize one for you too. She'll give you a little bit of options on that. Okay, let's do the
Kevin Burris.
Kevin Burris is carved in stone first.
That is going to Mike Sanderson, also in England.
Hey, Mike, it's great. Across the pond, and who gets the brush or the bag?
It's going to Michael Hankins in Flat Rock, Michigan.
Hey, Michael, congratulations. Now I got some little guys here that, in saying goodbye, are going to wish you a Merry Christmas. Come on over here, Mick. So these are my 3 youngest grandsons, right?
Get back some.
So this is, I know you. I've seen you before. It's the spaghetti on your face that I don't recognize. So your name would be, what is your name? Cooper. You, I know you. Mickey?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Mickey?
Mickey? What's your name? Moosey? This is little Bruce. So look over there at the camera and tell all these people Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And what comes after Christmas? Happy New Year. Yeah. Anything else to say?
Wait.
Have you boys been good all year? Are you going to get a dovetail for Christmas?
I'm supposed to know.
How are you supposed to? Well, you got a sharp tongue. Bo, you want to come in and say Merry Christmas? Bo works here full time now. Bo is my third son, my eighth child. Sporting a nice, turn around, a nice hoodie, purple. Isn't that cool? Bentley, you want to come over real quick and say Merry Christmas? Come over. This is Bentley. He's my oldest grandson. Do you want to say hi and Merry Christmas to everybody?
Hello, everybody. Merry Christmas.
you guys all have spaghetti sauce on
Bentley
your
won his
face.
3-on-3 basketball tournament today.
Ooh, he won?
Yep.
Wow. High five. Don't hit too hard. I got a sore neck. All right. You guys all have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you shortly after. And be good to everybody. See you. What are you grunting about?